I'm going to go over this for turf grass quality triangle right here. I got this from Travis Shaddix, and he runs a YouTube channel, Turf Grass Epistemology. And I mean, he's a soil scientist, and start using this internally. The reason I wanted to go over this today is because we're going through transition. The grass is coming out of dormancy. A lot of people's lawns aren't looking 100% yet. And so when you're evaluating the lawn, this triangle is a good place to start, and it kind of gives you steps. And so factors for turf grass quality, the first thing we want to look at is water. The second thing we want to take into consideration is sunlight. The third thing is soil temperature. The fourth thing we want to take into consideration is turf injury. And I labeled that as disease, pest, and then cultural habits. All these can to turf injury. And then fertile soil. Look at them individually. So water. Water is a critical factor in determining the quality of the turf. Key watering considerations: sufficient watering. Not getting enough water can cause turf injury. So, not watering enough can cause turf injury. Excessive watering can cause turf injury. It can lead to disease and damage. And then proper watering times can also lead to disease. So, if you're watering at the best time for disease to grow and the water is not being absorbed either into the ground by the turf just sitting there, that can cause disease, which is eventually going to cause turf injury. All this plays into what your lawn is going to look like in the spring. Let's say it warms up super early in February and we get no rain. That can cause that can cause insufficient water for your turf, soil out, and can damage the turf, and so it's going to struggle early on in the season. In the dead of summer, if it's not raining, if we're going through a drought and you've got 2 or 3 weeks of no rain and you're not watering, that's going to create turf injury, and that's going to play into the next season when when that turf comes out of dormancy in the spring, got damage from lack of water in the summer of the year before. Weather impacts on watering. Monitor rainfall and weather patterns as they significantly influence your lawn's watering requirements. Droughts mean you're going to need to water more. Rain means you're going to need to back off of watering. Adjust your watering schedule based on the conditions you might need to water for several days after heavy rainfall. Watering guidelines. Spring right now needs an inch to an inch and a half of water each week. If you're not getting that in rainfall, you need to be watering. Me personally, I've got my irrigation set for 3 days a week. And then when I'll see a heavy rain come, I'll cut my irrigation off and I'll wait 3, maybe even 4 days, depends on how long it takes to dry out before I start to water again. Summer, you want approximately 2 inches of water per week. Fall, you want to go back to 1 to 2 inches water per week. And then the winter, you want to water as needed to prevent the grass from drying out. And so all like rainfall plays into a factor. If it rains an inch and a half that week, you might not even need to water. So water is the first key. Are we getting enough water? Or are we getting too much water? And that's what we're going to be, asking as we evaluate loans. The second thing to look at when we evaluate loans is sunlight. Is crucial factor in the performance of turf grass. Sunlight requirements for turf grass varieties. Bermuda grass requires full sunlight. Most cultivars do not tolerate shade, and the ideal sunlight exposure is 7 or more hours per day of direct sunlight. And I want to stop and say, all right, so it's April now, it's mid-April, working on towards the end of April. And so the length of the sun, the time that sun is out is a lot longer than it was in March. And the days are going to get longer, so you're going to get more sunlight, so that grass is going to start to grow even more aggressively. And so you've got to have like the length of the day plays into the turf grass quality. Zoysia grass requires full sun or partial shade. An ideal full sun exposure is 6 or more hours per day of direct sunlight. An ideal partial shade exposure is 2 to 6 hours per day, and that's a huge difference. Like 2 to 6 hours per day of direct sunlight. So if partial shade does not mean it does not get direct sunlight. Partial shade means that it gets 2 to 6 hours of direct sunlight. And so centipede grass, the same, performs best in full sun or partial shade. Ideal is at least 6 hours of direct sunlight, but it can withstand 2 to 6 hours of direct sunlight. So when we say partial shade, that doesn't mean that it's shady the whole time. That it gets at least 2 hours of direct sunlight during that shaded period. St. Augustine thrives in full sun or partial shade. It is the most shade tolerant. Ideal sun exposure is 6 full hours, but it can withstand 2 to 6 hours of direct sunlight as well. So to recap, all warm season grass wants full sun. Zoysia, centipede and St. Augustine can handle partial shade. St. Augustine is the most shade tolerant, but at the end of the day, it all wants sunlight. And so sunlight is going to directly affect the quality of the turf. And when it's coming out of dormancy, it's got less sunlight than when it is in the middle of the summer. And so that's going to play into what it looks like coming out of dormancy. Soil temperatures. Soil temperatures are a critical factor in determining the quality of turf. Warm season grass temperature requirements. All right, so optimal growth conditions for warm season grasses, according to turf grass ecology in turf grass biology, use, and management. Warm season grasses achieve optimal growth when nighttime air temperatures remain above 69.8 degrees and daytime air temperatures are at or above 80 degrees. This will promote soil temperature consistently above 70 degrees. I'm going to check the daytime temperatures right now. So today is April 24th. 78 degrees is the high, 58 is the low. Tomorrow, 74, 54. Friday, 72, 59. Saturday, 73, 59. Sunday, 77, 59. Monday, 81, 60. So the 10-day forecast, the nighttime temperatures have not hit 69.8 degrees, and so we're not getting a consistently above 70 degrees. And to boil that down, the warm season grasses are just now coming out of dormancy. They are not the temperatures aren't there for aggressive growth. And so some lawns are not going to look as good as others. Some lawns are going to look like there's something wrong with them. There's nothing wrong with them right now. When you come into end of May and June and your grass still looks rough, then we need to start looking at other factors. But soil temperatures play a huge factor in what the turf grass looks like right now and then in the summer. And soil temperatures, we need to understand the relationship between soil temperatures and turf grass disease is crucial for effective disease management in lawns. And I say that like, let's look at this. We'll just read from the top. Large patch disease develops when soil temperatures fall to 70 degrees in the fall and is most active between soil temperatures of 60 and 70 degrees during cool, wet conditions in both fall and spring. And so large patch comes in the fall. You might not see it because the grass is coming on the back end of actively growing. You might not see large patch till the spring, and that's where the damage occurs, and that's when you see the damage, but the damage occurred in the fall. And so when your grass is coming out of dormancy and you see these big areas that are struggling to come out of dormancy that look like brown patches, that could possibly be large patch. And it comes in during cool, wet conditions in both fall and spring. Take all root rot. And Augustine centipede both struggle with this, and even zoysia in our area. And so optimal growth soil temperatures for take all root rot range from 77 to 86 degrees. This is when, so that's in that summer. So take all root rot is going to come in the summer, but you might not see that damage until fall, winter, or even spring of the next year. But the preventative measures should be implemented during the summer. So to prevent take all root rot, you need to be putting down a fungicide when in the summer when St. Augustine is actively growing. Dollar spot disease affects grasses when the soil temperature ranges from 60 degrees to 90 degrees, with increased activity during warm days, cool nights, and heavy dew from mid-May to mid-October. The disease begins its growth in the spring when nighttime temperatures exceed 50 degrees. So it can start when the nighttime so dollar spot is starting right now, and you're going to see that primarily in Bermuda and Zoysia. You don't really need a fungicide for dollar spot that with some nitrogen and it'll grow out of it. Spring dead spot. Effective fungicide applications occur when soil temperatures are between 60 and 80 degrees. The first application is recommended when soil temperatures fall below 70 degrees, typically between mid-September and mid-October. So spring dead spot is going to hit mid-September to October when the soil temperatures are 70 degrees. An additional application is advised in the spring when the soil temperatures consistently rise above 60 degrees. So you need to attack spring dead spot in the fall, but you're going to see it in the spring, and another application in the spring will help. But I'm not worried about like when to apply fungicides. What I'm really trying to stress is that like you can look at if your lawn is struggling in summer, it might be take all root rot. If it's struggling in the fall, it might be large patch. If it's struggling in the spring, it might be large patch dollar spot or spring dead spot. And so the soil temperatures, we can look at soil temperatures and figure out what might be going on in the turf to cause it to not look so healthy. Turf injury, disease, pests, and cultural habits. So, turf injury caused by various factors such as disease, pests, and cultural practices can degrade turf quality. So, we looked at water, we've looked at sunlight, we looked at soil temperatures, and now we're looking at turf injury. And so, really, you got to be investigative reporter, journalist, CSI, investigator, you know, like we got to come in, ask questions to figure out why is the turf looking rough. Injury factors: disease occurs during summer and fall when the grass is actively growing, but the damage may not be noticeable till next spring. So we want to look at pictures from the last summer and fall and see if we could see disease coming in, and then we know that that might be large patch or what have you. Summer we could see the possibility of the start of take all root rot in those pictures in the past, and now when it's coming out of dormancy in the spring, we can better diagnose what's going on and why you're having turf injury. Pest damage. Pest damage has similar timing to disease, with the damage typically seen in the summer and the fall, but often not noticed until spring. And so bugs, hot summer days, chinch bugs come out, start attacking the St. Augustine, but it's still actively growing, so we might not notice that until fall or winter or even spring of the next year, that chinch bug damage. Same thing, mole crickets in Zoysia, Bermuda, eat all the turf. Mole crickets primarily are hatching in May, June. By the end of June, 1st of July, most of them have hatched. They wake up, they come out of the eggs, and they start feeding on your grass, but the grass is actively growing at that same time, so you might not see the damage until spring of the next year. You might not even know you have them until winter or spring of next year. Proper water issues. Lack of water can cause turf injury. Overwatering also contributes to turf injury. Fine line between getting the right amount of water down, especially when you're talking about centipede grass. And you just got to really learn your lawn and learn how much is enough and how much is too much. Mowing practices. Improper mowing techniques can lead to turf injury. You know, if you're not if you're mowing bi-weekly or once a month, you're going to do damage to the turf. You're going to bring in a ton of thatch, and on top of that, can come in. And the more often you mow, the less weeds you're going to get, which means your grass is going to your grass is not fighting for nutrients, which means your grass is going to fill in. When you mow, your grass is going to fill in because grass grows. It grows horizontal versus vertical. You want it to grow horizontal versus vertical. More often you mow, the more that's going to contribute to that, and you're going to get a better stand of turf. The less often you mow, the more you're going to promote injury. Chemical spills. You can be exposure to gas, oil, and various types of fluids can damage the turf. You have from the mower. You could be parking a car on that grass. That car's leaking oil. You might have changed the oil on that grass. All kind of factors. Spills or any kind of spill. Any type of form product that the grass does not like that is harming that. You could have tables, kids' play toys, whatever, sitting out on that lawn, injure the turf. Cultural habits. Certain cultural practices can adversely affect health, and that would be mowing, watering, traffic areas. All those play into turf injury, and so we want to factor that in. Is that the problem? Is that the cause of the quality of turf? And then the last thing we want to look at is fertile soil. So checking soil fertility should be the final step in assessing factors affecting turf quality, ideally accomplished through a soil test. So the macronutrients, those are the big three: nitrogen, phosphorus, potassium. Nitrogen, Bermuda, from NC State's website, 3 to 6 pounds per 1,000 square foot per year. Zoysia, 2 to 4 pounds per 1,000 square foot per year. Centipede, 1 to 2. St. Augustine, 2 to 4. Are you getting enough nitrogen on the lawn, or maybe you're not, and that's why the quality of turf? I would say the timing of fertilization also can affect the quality of turf. You don't want to go and put nitrogen down at the end of the season, because coming back out of dormancy can injure the turf over the winter, coming back out of dormancy that next spring if you put nitrogen down too late. Are you putting too much nitrogen down? Centipede only wants 1 to 2 pounds per 1,000 for the full year. Are you not putting enough nitrogen down? All that factors into quality of turf. Phosphorus. It is sensitive to phosphorus. Excessive levels inhibit growth. So if you got high levels of phosphorus, you might as well get a hoe or a bobcat and just scrape the lawn, because if the phosphorus is too high, the centipede will not grow. Potassium, it's important for winter injury protection, but excessive amounts can be harmful for the lawn as well. So, we got to look at, are we getting enough potassium? Are we getting too much potassium? Are we putting phosphorus down on centipede, and centipede doesn't like phosphorus? All that can play into the quality of turf. And then the pH level. Bermuda wants 5.8 to 6.5, but it'll tolerate a range from 5 to 8.5. Zoysia wants 6 to 6.5, but it'll tolerate 5.8 to 7. Centipede prefers 5.5, but it tolerates 4.5 to 6.0. So, so if you've got a high pH level, you might want to think about a different turf grass as well, because centipede just won't tolerate. Look at there, above 6. St. Augustine, 5 to 7.5, but it'll tolerate 5 to 8.5. And then micronutrients, rarely are you going to need those. The only thing I would say is magnesium's not on here, but iron and magnesium are the big two, and you're putting that on centipede and St. Augustine to green them up. So I will say this: iron is what you need to green up turf. You don't want to use nitrogen to green the turf up. You want to use nitrogen to make it grow. You want iron to green the turf up. And you'll see like yellowing in St. Augustine in both centipede, and that could be an iron deficiency. And if you just spray it with some iron, it'll green up in a couple of days. All right, conclusion. Oh, it can't get me to drag. So this is the turf. We'll call it turf quality triangle. And so the first place we want to check is water. Is it getting enough? Is it getting too much? It could be getting too much water, causing disease, and that's why the quality of turf has gone down. The second thing we want to play into, the factor we want to play into, is sunlight. Is it getting enough sunlight? Is it spring and the sunlight's just not there yet? Or is it just what too much shade for the type of turf you have? Soil temperatures, are they there yet? If they're not consistent, we saw that the daytime temperatures need to be 80, nighttime temperatures need to be 70. That would, or 69.8 to be exact, and that would give you a consistent 70 degree above 70-degree soil temperature. Until I'll say this, until soil temperatures get there, you can't really do anything else to get that grass to wake up. You don't want to fertilize. You just really got to wait on the soil temperatures to come up. Turf injury. Well, we need to assess and we need to ask questions. Do we have disease? Do we have pests from last year? What cultural habits are playing into turf injury? Is that an indication? Is the turf injury the reason for the lack of quality? And then finally, we want to check the soil fertility. We want to check primarily the pH. Is the pH correct for the type of grass that we have? And are we fertilizing properly at the proper times? I hope this gives you a good understanding of where to start and where to end on checking the quality of turf. If you got any questions, we can help out in any way, let us know.